Birimbau tocou, vamos tocar birimbau. Tem capoeira jogando lá no fundo do quintal. Birimbau tocou, vamos tocar birimbau. Tem capoeira jogando lá no fundo do quintal. Big love and respect, dissidents. Give thanks and praise. Welcome back to the shared artistic expression. Wild weaves. Always with the wild weaves. I want to reorient my audience for those who have not been in on the slick dissident journey from way back in the days. This episode's going to have a lot of show notes. I'm going to refer back to my own projects, and I'm going to have a lot of evidence linked to YouTube videos that you'll probably be interested in sifting through some of the fascinating details that probably went unnoticed. And I know I keep saying that I'm going to leave the chump ear castrated event alone. However, it is a legacy. It's what we will be handing down to the generations to come, and it seems to some degree irresponsible for us to leave many stones unturned and so many fine details not fully masticated just yet. So Slick's got a keen eye for details, y'all. I studied the sleight of hand when I was very young, and it just so happens that I picked up on quite a few little nuggets that I think I can truncate the drive to birth further questions from some of these observations right here and now, so that the kids don't have to look at what we missed and question our own clarity of vision. So I'm going to turn over all the stones and reveal all of the mysteries that I can to do my part to disempower the gluttony of unresolved magic and put a name to it and put it to rest. So I want to give thanks and praise to my own personal think tank. I got a whole team of homies working behind me that bring a lot of bandwidth, a lot of added value to these gems and these jewels and these treasures that we benefit from here on the shared artistic expression of Slick Dissident. So yeah, big up to all my homies out there. So much love and respect. My buddy Kyle Denton, Tippecanoe herbs, y'all. Go get some. I got some Tippecanoe herbs all over this house. But yeah, Kyle gifted me almost a year ago by making the fascinating correspondence just as I was dipping my toes into the significance of the Navaratri ritual. It was Kyle who made the connection that the first day of Navaratri in 2023 was in the fall on October 15th, which is Friedrich Nietzsche's birthday. Friedrich Nietzsche initiates the Navaratri on 2023, and it runs 9 days in the fall. And that was so synchromistic, I could hardly contain myself. It was so fascinating. Now, the Navaratri is on a lunar calendar, I do believe. And that means that it will fall on different dates every year. So you got to kind of keep yourself abreast of the magics of the Navaratri Devis, which in my previous project, which I will link in the show notes, I have made a powerful correspondence of the 8 speakers in the symposium plus one, as Plato is the medium who conveys the story and rounds out the characters. So that puts him in the number 9 spot. All of Western philosophy is but cliff notes to Plato. That gives him staying power. And the number 9 personality type, the peacekeeper balanced one with the shadow of sloth, has the remedial virtue of perseverance. And so Alfred North Whitehead's quote about Plato puts both Plato and Alfred North Whitehead at the pinnacle of perseverance, as all of philosophy is just cliff notes to what Plato already laid out. So I'm going to do a little bit of a review, but I'm also going to link the deep dive that I did almost a year ago, maybe more. And Kyle blowing my mind with the fact that Friedrich Nietzsche, his birthday was day number 1 of the Navaratri ritual on 2/2/3. 2023, the Navaratri lands on Friedrich Nietzsche's birthday. I have a wild belief that the great disappointment, it missed Friedrich Nietzsche's birthday by exactly a week. And in a fascinating way, that gives the Baha'i the public-facing provenance of a missed Messiah. But I venture to guess that he was not as missed as the public-facing public relations team would have us believe, as the Baha'i is thriving. They're one of the fastest growing religious orders there are, and those Raelians are grafted right on with them, which puts them 1 degree away from Scientology, which puts them 1.1 degree away from the Mormons. The back of all of these tarot cards have the Rosicrucian design on them. Also, the artist who made these cards is buried in northeast India. So the appropriate correspondence of the Navaratri to her works is very empowering. It's very empowering. Also, Navaratri is, the symposium is 9 speakers, male, lounging around. They sent the ladies out for some quality man time, for some bro loving. However, each one of them has a sacred muse that informs their art craft, that gives them a debt, a spiritual, philosophical debt to what I consider an entire hallway, an entire artistic techne that is in the dominion of 9 different muses. And they embody that fact quite explicitly, but only with the eyes. Those with the eyes to see are going to bring that depth of perception to what Plato's Symposium is gifting us. And those 9 Hindu characters are called the Devis, the 9 Devis. And for those of you who may have forgotten, that is the middle name of Kamala Harris. Also, Kamala Harris has the same last name as the artist who made this deck, Lady Frida Harris. So I think that's a pretty firm structure of correspondence to move forward on. So having laid that out, I want to do a quick review just in case anybody doesn't go back and watch my very excited revelation of the Devis as they correspond exactly in the perfect order. Every year, every Navaratri, they correspond in the exact order of the speakers of the symposium. And the missing speaker in the symposium is Urania, that will be the muse of Plato as he rounds out the shape. He gives form to the symposium. And that is the symbol of Urania, is the orb in Urania's hands. So let me read through as just a quick purview. But I want to give thanks. So Kyle blew my mind when he placed Nietzsche at the initiation of the fall Navaratri. Only in 2003. It jumps around because it's on the lunar calendar. But then it was almost 6 months later when a very, very dear soul gifted me all over again and pointed out that there are two Navaratris in the year. There's two public-facing Navaratris. And I was already packed and ready to go to X marks the spot on Carbondale with the Great American Eclipse to have my Sasquatch sighting. I'll link that in the show notes too. As I approached the clearing at Carbondale, Illinois, preparing for this totality of the eclipse, something very large in the bushes made quite a ruckus. And it wasn't only shaking the reeds, it was thumping the ground, way too heavy to be a deer. And sure enough, when I did my inversion to perceive the Great American Eclipse with a one-of-a-kind perspective, with a bit of an Odin on Yggdrasil one-eyed view, I was able to perceive the eclipse completely inverted from the orientation of everybody else looking up. For me, I was looking down. It was very unique. And in that moment of totality, something from the exact location, only less than 20 yards from me, off in the reeds, something calls out. And it actually took me months to even make the connection that the call was obvious right away, but it took me months to give myself the permission to speculate that could have very well been a skunk ape or a Sasquatch of some sort. There was no smell. I would have noticed if there was a smell, I would have noticed it right away. But there was no, the requisite stinkiness of the Sasquatch. It was not there. However, there were quite a few other energies to be accounted for. So I'll link that in the show notes too. That was a very special moment for me. So that day number 1 of the Navaratri in the spring was the commencement of the Great American Eclipse. And I went on to have many magical adventures from that endeavor. And just recently, Kyle blows my mind again. Kyle, man, brother, yeah, my think tank is very blessed to have such sharp, cunning ninjas back in my play. I tell you what. So I want to give thanks to all the brothers, bringing so much wisdom and experience for us to benefit from. So Kyle brought it to my attention that the fall and the spring Navaratri are public facing. There's actually a hidden Navaratri at 90 degrees axial orientation from the public facing one. It's called the Gupta Navaratri. The word Gupta literally means hidden. This is the hidden Navaratri. And Kyle already did the math for us, y'all. It turns out that the Gupta Navaratri, it commenced this year on July 7th. And it was a special Gupta Navaratri because it had a double bump on one of the Devis' special days of observance. They gave 2 days to one of the Devis in particular. And that Devi is a very telling character. So I'm going to do a quick run through and correspond the Devis of the Navaratri with the Muses of the Symposium. And now also I need to say this. I am quite sensitive, I'm quite experienced in what it is to deal with cultural appropriation. And in complete honesty, I know very little about the Hindu pantheon. I barely can pronounce these words, so I am not exactly worthy of pointing any accusatory fingers at the Hindu practitioners, at any of that. That's not what I'm at. However, I have a wonderful amount of affluence when it comes to the Greek Muses, who are perfect one-to-one correspondents to the 9 Devis. So I think that initiates me to some degree to bring these correspondences together. But folks, just remember, they are not the same. Homogenizing is a shallow comfort. The Greeks were speaking the Greek tongue, eating Greek food, giving Greek offerings in honor of the Muses. And now all the Christians are going to get their panties in a wad because they think that this is worshiping. You better check yourself. You better check yourself. Worshiping, that's your thing. That's your thing. Honoring is quite a different thing. Now, I will say that from what I can tell, the Hindus, they're kind of into worshiping. They're a little more into worshiping, which is to say they're fulfilling a quota. That, to me, is the fine line between honoring and worshiping. If you're fulfilling a quota, if you're meeting a requisite, that there's some guilt if you don't fulfill this state-sanctioned, imposed presumption, that's worship. If you're keeping track, if you're keeping score, and if you miss it, then you're guilty of something, that's a quota. That's worship. I ain't down with that. Honoring is on your terms. And we're not compelling any of these egregores into obedience. That is not what honoring is about. There is just simply a certain stimulation of favors. That is what honoring is about. And if you miss it, you miss it. Get it better next time. So these fine lines, I think, are quite appropriate, are quite important, so that we don't misappropriate these observances of other peoples and other languages with other foods and other expectations. I think it's very important that we keep these deviations in place, as the Muses are not the Devis. However, they are clearly sharing a certain lineage of observation. And the nature of that observation is the difference. And the difference, the nuance, is where the most rewarding gnosis is found. I must stop lecturing. So, big up to Kyle, pointing out that there is a hidden Navaratri that kicks off right over July. And wouldn't you know, it was July 13th, 713, that fulfills the ear-castrated event. Speaking of which, what am I doing with this thing? And interestingly enough, with the hidden Gupta Navaratri, there is a summer Navaratri, and there is a requisite winter, 180 degrees. Another Gupta Navaratri that is hidden, more subtle. And again, the more subtle, the more rewarding, because the subtle informs the gross. So, Kyle already did the work for us. Chump's ear-castrated event lands exactly on a very telling Davies day of worship, really. I'm going to read through these correspondences, but please go down in the show notes and check out my more thorough breakthrough, where I go step by step for each Devi and each muse, and read the description and correspond it to the nature of both the eulogy told by the speaker in the symposium and the symbols and the significance of the personality types of these different muses, who are the gatekeepers of different technes. And when I say gatekeepers, I've made this claim before, and I probably sound off the wall to people who haven't been on the adventure, but each of the gatekeepers of these 9 forms of techne, they constitute a different hallway in the Library of Alexandria. And many of the wisdom keepers of the enneagram will tell you that mastery over the enneagram renders every library ever obsolete. You can burn every library there is. And these stories, this telemetry data, is the fundamental bedrock truth that will grow out perennially, regardless of papers, regardless of tablets, regardless of fragments, regardless of Nag Hammadi or not. All right. So I'm going to, no, I'll just use this for the symposium. I'll use this arrangement. These are not the cards when I found the symposium. The cards that I used to find the symposium, let me pull this down. The cards I used to find the symposium, I had 2 cards in every station, using the gematological value of the cards. So card number 1-6 is in the 7 spot. And when I made the discovery, card number 7 was with card number 1-6 because they both add up to 7. So they were holding down Socrates' position in the 7th seat, which is an enthusiast with a shadow of the glutton and the remedial virtue of abstinence. I find it fascinating that when that ear-castrated event popped off, a lot of people were inspired to, there was trepidation over the fog of unknowing. Nobody wanted to make a knowledge claim, but everybody was gluttonous with questions. And that's Socrates' jam. He's the Grand Inquisition, y'all. Socrates is the Grand Inquisition. The Socratic method is exactly how the daemon of daemons draws out other daemons. Also, I'll get to that. I'll get to this. So I'm going to use this arrangement as it was the closest orientation to the symposium that started me on this adventure so long ago. Just remember that these cards are rearranged because I've ordered the 1 through 9 prime numbers and given them the tarot cards to hold the symbolic significance of the prime stations in the enneagram. So this arrangement is not the same as this arrangement. However, there are some fascinating details in this arrangement that almost serve as a key to make the turn from the presentational immediacy of just seeing numbers 1 through 9 and realizing that they also signify the primes 1 through 9. So, the first speaker in Plato's Symposium was Phaedrus. Phaedrus was a rhetorician, and thereby there is no other muse that could possibly be informing his spirit other than Polyhymnia. Polyhymnia is the muse of rhetoricians and also the rhapsodies. If you know about the dialogue with the Aeon, you'll notice that the Aeon card is also in the Phaedrus position number 1. And so over here, we're going to be looking at the Magi card, kinda, but also the Wheel of Fortune card. And Polyhymnia is notorious for generally being depicted dressed in a veiled garment. She's covering something under her robe. She's in this position of ennui, and she is oftentimes practicing rhetorance. Rhetorance? She's a rhetorician. She's practicing reticence with one finger to her lips, much like the Aeon card, as she knows when to talk, when not to talk. And also, this is telling us that what is not said is where the deepest rewards are garnered. And we know this about the mind's dream media today. That's our main complaint, is so much of what is telling is in what they do not talk about. So the first Devi observed on the first day of Navaratri, her name is Shalaputri. And in the summer hidden Navaratri cycle this year, she was observed at the kicking off of the ceremonies on July 6th. The second speaker in the symposium is Pausanias. He is a historian. Some say he's, the name Pausanias has almost 4, it was a common name at the time. But that all 4 of the characters named Pausanias land handedly into the eulogy given by that Pausanias in particular. The Pausanias historical Pausanias is in a fascinating way embedded into, is his name Tim Hoth? I'm going to screw that name up. The main actor of Shawshank Redemption. Pausanias, one of the Pausaniases, the biological historical Pausanias, has a biology that is exactly like the main character of Shawshank Redemption. It's fascinating, and because he was sexually assaulted, and he stowed up his vitriol for years and swallowed his pride. This number 2 is a giver with the shadow of pride. Number 1 is an achiever with the shadow of wrath, remedial virtue of patience. Number 2, giver with the shadow of pride, remedial virtue of magnanimity, greatness of soul. It takes an immense amount of greatness of soul to swallow your pride for years and years. But then, when he unleashed, it was megalomaniacal when you invert magnanimity. And he ends up being the assassin who killed Philip the Great. So, Pausanias is he's a law bringer. At the time of the symposium, he is a lawyer. He's a bringer of the law, and thereby his muse is Clio, the muse of history, who is often depicted or signified symbolically with simply a scroll. Also, books strewn about on the ground, and even the number 11, 2 pillars, is signified like the pause sign. But if you look up Pausanias' sacred text, the heading of it is 2 pillars on their side. It's actually an equal sign, because that scroll that Clio has on her lap is the provenance of equity. So Clio is the second muse in the Symposium, the second Devi in Navaratri. Her name is Brahmakarini, and she was observed on July 7th. The third speaker in the Symposium is Eryximachus. Eryximachus, he is a healer, and he had to de-seat Aristophanes, as Aristophanes got the hiccups from so much hypocrisy that was in the subtext of Pausanias' speech. So Aristophanes catches the hiccups, and he sits out for a term. And Eryximachus takes his place and gives him a prescription to hold your breath or tickle your nose with the feather or drink water until I'm done speaking, and then your hiccups from the hypocrisy, hypocrisy will go away if you just sit back while I take the helm. And so Eryximachus is the third speaker, and he is the only physician in the group. And there's only one possible muse who could correspond to this number 3 position. Her name is Euterpe, and she is the muse of the sick. It is Eryximachus' eulogy where he speaks on the harmony of the body to heal. And so there is no other muse that could be over his shoulder, whispering in his ear, to keep his eulogy in the context of the harmony. So the third muse is Euterpe, signified by a flute. Sometimes it's a double flute, sometimes it's the double-nosed flute, which is fascinating because of the chripe. The chripe is a nasal straw that somebody will blow medicine up your nose for you to send you on a trip like none other. So even the piccolo, the double piccolo, is sometimes played in the nose, but it's also correspondent to the chripe, and it is only Eryximachus is the therapist. He's the theripeist. He's the therapist. And wouldn't you know, the third Devi in Navaratri is Chandraghantha. Chandraghantha. And it even has the word drag in it. And that is the dragon. That is signifying Ophiuchus. This is the hangman card. Ophiuchus is pharmakia. But it has the word drag in it. And the drags have to do with many things. The dregs at the bottom of the cauldron is where some of the strongest, most potent medicine is scraped off the dregs of the bottom of the cauldron, but also extracted through other means. So yeah, the dragon of the drugs of the dregs are all signified here in this hangman card. And sure enough, there's a snake down below, there's a snake up above, having everything to do with Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil. So yeah, lizard dragon. Yggdrasil is an anagram for lizard dragon. Is that right? Yggdrasil. Yeah. Yggdrasil. I might be wrong. I might be wrong on that. Dragon egg. Dragon egg. That's it. It's dragon egg is the anagram in Yggdrasil. So yeah, very, very powerful right here. The fourth speaker, who is holding his breath, tickling his nose with a feather, and sipping water, like totally making a distraction while the healer is speaking, bringing harmony. The comedian is like just off to the side, having his own personal struggle while the therapist is talking and trying to keep things serious. The comedian is totally distracting. So the Aristophanes is the fourth speaker, with an immense amount of gnosis to garner. I recommend everything he's ever written, as he was writing in the time when it was culminating fall of the empire. And so everything he has to say is hidden in underneath. He's a comedian, and also Democratus is the foundation of democracy, and he is even called the mocker as well. So Democratus, atomism, all these things are right here in the number 4 personality type, which is an individual with a shadow of envy, Leviathan. Number 3 personality type is an achiever with a shadow of deceit. There is no infernal name for there's no infernal correspondence for deceit, but I would speculate that this is maybe the devil at large. He's a doubler, which is what music does. You double the divided line to make that instrument come to life and bring harmony. So the fourth speaker, Aristophanes, his muse can be no other muse but Thalia. Thalia is so powerful and profound and so potent. There's an immortality to all of these techniques. That's why the Library of Alexandria is right here, y'all. It didn't go anywhere. Thalia is the muse of comedy, and she is signified with a shepherd's crook. And on July 9th and 10th, she was observed in her form as the Devi, who is named Kushmanda. And I find this quite fascinating that this hidden Navaratri gave her a double bump. She got the day's celebration of the 9th, and she got a celebration on the 10th for some special occasion that I can't say why, but I do know that there is a certain potency to the envy that is projected onto individuals. There's a fascinating potency to that envy, which is referred to as Leviathan, and probably has a great amount to do with the social contract of Thomas Hobbes, which is a whole nother Leviathan today, that social contract. I also need to mention that the secret society that venerates these cards, they go by the term Thalima, which is so correspondent to Thalia. Dhamma is merely revealing the feminine aspect of the Devis. So Kushmanda got a double bump over the month of July on the 9th and the 10th. It's a 9 and a 1. Or a 1-9. Next, on the 12th is that right? No, on the 11th is the Devi whose name is Skandamata. In the Symposium, this is Agathon, the 5th speaker. He is the host of the party, and he is a tragedian. Thereby, his muse absolutely must be Melpomene, she who delights in murder. She is often depicted with a dagger, also the frowny mask. You get a smiley face with Thalia, you get the frowny face with Melpomene. And she's a sad, sad pussycat, I tell you what. Yeah, she likes to sulk. She loves to sulk. And she also is known as she with the sumptuous dress. She has something of a tactile fixation as she loves to she's probably an overeater. She takes comfort in food. And so there's a certain dress code that tragedians are required to wear back in those days. And sometimes I believe that the dress code of a tragedian was subtle foreshadowing in theater to indicate which character was going to experience the tragedy. Much like today in Star Trek, they say the red shirt's gonna die. Well, back then it would have been the one with the sumptuous dress is gonna die, or the one with the high-laced boots, or they also had their high belt. They had a high riding belt if they were a tragedian. So these things become predictive programming from the Greek theaters, and today we recognize them as the red shirt's gotta die. So Skandamata was observed on the 11th. Next comes the missing seat in the Symposium. This is the fear nature that Socrates was occulting as he was sprawled out, covering up an empty spot in the Symposium. He's gluttonous like Russia. He was sprawled out over too much space, taking up this empty seat, hiding it with his robe. This empty seat in the Symposium is Arato. And Arato is the origin of all of the erotes, the little cherubs, the little cupids. And amongst that retinue is Eros. Eros is the alpha, public-facing cupid cherub baby from the Greeks that were called the erotes. And for the Greeks, they were very young. No, wrong. For the Greeks, they were actually teenagers, almost with hair on their face. They were on the verge of becoming mature. Their enneagram system, enneagram system, their hormones, the mother of the Muses is Hermione. The hormones of the erotes were actually at that appropriate age where they were just becoming sexualized as they were almost teens, and then some. When they get to Rome, the erotes become completely inappropriately infantilized. Almost made up a word there. Infantilized. In Rome, the cherubs become inappropriately young. They don't even have a chance for those hormones to appropriate their relationship in the culture. And that was the hand of Rome. So Arato is the hidden missing muse in the missing seat of the Symposium. And sure enough, the children of Arato are the subject matter at hand. So the fact that she is hidden or obscured, but still accounted for because that is the subject of the Symposium, is Eros. They're talking about her children. So this is a missing seat in the Symposium. In the Navaratri sequence that is presented in the exact same order every time, the 6th day, and in this case the 7th, because there was a double bump here, is Katyayani. And in the pantheon of the Greeks, this is going to be Apollo and his sister Artemis. I find this very interesting. If you watch my other video, you'll see me go on about this, that Artemis is often depicted as a cat. And the name of this deity is Katyayani. Now, everybody wants to think Leo. It's Leo. Nice guess. Oh, it's Leo Minor. It's not a bad guess. Felix. Is it Felix? Just 10 degrees over? Is it the Felix constellation? Yeah, it's not bad either. The little house cat in the sky. The Lynx constellation is Artemis. That is the Katyayani, which is also just 10 degrees from the lion. So, Katyayani is generally on the 6th day. But remember, we have this give or take one, this extra day this year, this extra bump in the sequence, because somebody got 2 days observed. Next comes the number 7. Lands. Oh, Katyayani would have been on July the 12th. Number 7 lands on July 13th. This is Socrates in the Symposium. This is the arch inquisitor. And all of the questions are still being birthed, being drawn out by the spectators who are watching this mystic incantation with no clue at all. In the original arrangement, this was the Chariot card. This was the Teflon Don. And the Tower card, which has always been correspondent to Trump. Always. Chariot and the Tower are in Socrates' position in my original arrangement. And wouldn't you know, the name of the Devi on July 13th is Kal-Ratri. Kal-Ratri. Teflon Don is rocking that Superman archetype. Archetypes are so watered down. He's the Teflon Don archetype of Superman. In the name of the Devi on the day that he did his ear castrated event is Kal-Ratri. Kal-El. Kal-El is Superman's nativity name. His nativity name is Kal-El. And on the Navaratri Gupta, the hidden Navaratri, there is an observance of Kal-El. There is a +1 in the sequence. And sure enough, Teflon Don, dodging bullets, getting his ear squib anointing, making him officially hear no evil. He's now hear no evil. King of Shades, Biden is see no evil, and RFK is speak no evil. Next in the Symposium is Alcibiades comes dancing into the room and steals the show with his drunken master style as he embodies Eros and completely outdoes all these layabouts by embodying and acting. We've broken from the 7 to the 8, we've broken out of the thinking groups. Number 7 personality type is an enthusiast with a shadow of glutton and a remedial virtue of abstinence. Socrates was abstaining from a great many things. He abstained from food for the first few courses of the meal, and he abstained from revealing the secrets. He abstained from speaking the high royal Greek. He got permission to speak Koine Greek or street slang because he learned about Eros from somebody who was an outsider. So he had to get permission to speak street slang to convey what he knew about love, and that's when he gave them the ladder that builds to what is beautiful. And this is the mystagogue of science, giving the first seance as to the definition of what is beautiful and laying the path for all science to come. And all of the PhDs are under this spell, this enchantment from the first seance given by the mystagogue of science. The words they use for his speech is belly talk. And belly talk is what mediums do when they do ventriloquism. Alcibiades comes in the room dancing like a drunken master, and sure enough, there's only one muse. There's only one muse. It has to be Terpsichore, the muse of dance. And sure enough, he wins the show, and he makes a move to try to sit in this hidden seat. He wants this number 6 seat, as he wants to be next to Agathon, but he also wants to be between Agathon and Socrates. Another aspect, one of the symbols for Arato, the number 6, is a lightning bolt. And Alcibiades, in his biography, he wanted the favor of Arato, so he had his soldiers put lightning bolts on their shields. So he was desirous of the symbol of Arato by putting that lightning bolt on his shield. However, he was much too much of a drunken master, way too unsettled, thereby giving him that significant relationship to Terpsichore. A couple hundred years later, maybe more, Heliogabalus fulfills this number 8 challenger with the shadow of domineering or lust. Heliogabalus does the same thing, and he is known for his Dionysian dancing rites and a lot of erotic tomfoolery around Heliogabalus as well. So yeah, Alcibiades takes the number 8 position, and sure enough, Terpsichore is his muse, and in the Navaratri, that is Mahagauri. Number 9, that speaker, there is no ninth speaker in the Symposium. I'm going to go with the Hermit card. There's no ninth speaker in the Symposium because Plato is still yet a child. It's almost like they were prophesizing the nubile Messiah to come, who would regale everyone with the legacy that they put forward. So he is the one who is the medium. This is a balanced mediator with the shadow of sloth and a remedial virtue of perseverance. Diligence. I like diligence. And sure enough, his muse will be Urania. And there's a little orb in the corner of this hermit card. There's also, you could have the moon card there, and the moon card signifies Urania as well, much like R2D2. All right. So I'm going to cut there and come back, and I'm going to finish up. We're going to get into the imbeciles of the symbolic Olympics. All right. Bless up, y'all. BRB. Give thanks and praise. That was quick. All right. A couple of little details before I move on to the imbecilic symbolic Olympics. I want to point out a fascinating detail in the sleight of hand that was the 713 ritual that nobody has found yet. I think this is actually embedded for the subliminal infinite questions, the gluttony of questions that people will perpetually be looking to the future or to what is obvious for their answers. There is a fascinating detail that nobody is asking questions about yet. And as soon as they see it, it will become quite clear how the entire event was a fabrication, because the timing of what I've picked out of the details, while everybody's looking at this hand, the coin is in the other hand. I should do a little. Let me do a little of my old kung fu. Whoa, what? Say what? Yeah, the sleight of hand is pretty obvious to the magically inclined. Has a lot to do with that tractor, that John Deere John letter that hails to the DVOC of the divorce of the COVID. That tractor was up to no good, way under the radar. So I'm going to link a little clip. I'll link the short clip. I actually I have a small segment of a time-stamped recording of 5 or 6 different cameras, all looking in all different directions, all at once. And this one particular camera actually has, for some reason, panned to stage right, while everybody's looking to stage left where the gunfire came from. Off on stage right, there is a tractor in the background. And while the chaos is exploding in everybody's mind, this damn tractor ejaculates all over the audience, just over behind the bleachers. This is making the difference. This is the sign language for I forget. And so the bleachers are having their mind wiped in the traumatic moment. And the tractor behind them is blasting the entire backdrop with some weird, strange chemical. And it is not a gun. It is not the cannon, what did they call that? The fire the firing column. I don't even know what that's called. It's not a gun. It's a tractor. Blasting everybody, inseminating them with questions. And behind the tractor is another forklift of some sort. That's not even the right term. Another type of tractor that is a hydraulic lift tractor that is actually like jerking around like it's humping the tractor. And the tractor is ejaculating onto the crowd. This symbolically is, if anybody ever gets around to it, for one, it reveals the game, that there was perfect timing, coordinated on a much larger scale. And I want to say that it is not going to draw, the answers to these questions are not going to be found in the future. The answer to these questions are found in the past. And I want to give big love and respect to our brother Donut. Donut did some deep dives on the predictive programming. I see you, Donut. Big love, Donut. I know you're out there watching. Big love, Donut. Much respect. So Donut was corresponding the Olympic imbecilic symbolic games with the Rugrats. And it turns out that the Rugrats had an episode where there's a dinosaur, a mechbot, attacking the Eiffel Tower. And I'll bring a graphic. And I highly recommend everybody go get yourself some donut. Bring some coffee. Homie stays up late. So in the Rugrats, there's a mechbot, a T-Rex, a Tau Rex, the king of the Tau. And the Tau Rex is attacking the tower in that Rugrat episode. And our homie Donut was speculating that this was predictive programming for the events in France. Well, sure enough, that tractor, much like the T-Rex in the Rugrats episode, was getting humped by this other tractor right at the moment of chaos. And this is inseminating, not just, and I mean inseminating, not just the Rugrats and things of the children, and not just the Amazon Santo chemical fear propaganda. It's also hailing to Godzilla, which was pretty much the name of the symbolic imbecilic Olympic ceremony, which I think was called Gozira. I don't even know. I'm not paying that much attention because I'm not into the symbolic imbecilic Olympics. But also Dinobots from the Transformers, which I've done weaves on the Transformers. It was my first weave with One-on-One. Big love, Juan. I know you watching too, homie. I know you've taken notes. My buddy Juan and we did a whole breakdown on every one of the Transformers movies were launched in the sign of Cancer, embedding the significance of this mechbot into the season of Cancer. There was one exception, and that exception was the standalone movie about what's his name? Bumblebee. Bumblebee was 180 degrees away from the launch date of all of the Transformers. Every Transformers was in Cancer. I think the Bumblebee standalone episode was down in Capricorn, 180 degrees from Cancer. So it's fascinating because of the goals of Bumblebee, but also all of the Dinobots. There's Dinobots are part of the Transformers, corresponding to that the machine dinosaur from the Rugrats that Donut brought forward. And there's a great many other things that I might not even catch all of these details. But Godzilla, the T-Rex of the Tau Rex, here I'm going to put them both together. The T-Rex of the Tau Rex, but also, let me see, Maximum Overdrive from way back in the 80s, from way back in the heydays of the 80s was Maximum Overdrive, where all the machines just gain a spirit of their own, come to life, and start killing everybody. With the what's his name? The goblin. There's the goblin's face is on the front of one of those mad semi trucks. There's a lot of anti-semi semantics, anti-semi semantics embedded even into the Great Honkening, was vilifying tractors, trailers, and semis. This anti-semi schism. The fact that I'm decoding this through the Greeks kind of vindicates the Hebrews. It kind of vindicates the Jews, because the signs and the symbols are an art craft that is originated from the free-thinking Greeks, not from the loyal Hebrews. Pacific Rim. The film Pacific Rim was chock full of predictive programming for the coronavirus. I'm going to bring it quite a few graphics if I can on this episode. I'm going to go nuts on the graphics. I'm going to go nuts on the video clips. I'm going to see if I can clip a video. Pacific Rim, the Nemesis character, he comes home from a hard day at work, and he's got a poster right at the door of the quintessential image that from my biology books from high school was a picture of where do sneezes come from. It's got a picture of a C virus embedded into human tissues, and he's got it on his wall like it's his main hero when he comes home every day. And then he goes into his bedroom and he starts getting down with this alien brain that he likes to have strange relations to. But that's not all. If you watch Pacific Rim, I think it was Pacific Rim 2. It was actually part 2. There's C viruses all over the place. The power battery charger of the Renegade bot, it's all over the place. It was just steeped in it. Just like when they put out the New Hope, there were multiple Greedos reinstilled into the new extra extended version, where they put 15 more minutes of Star Wars into Star Wars. Well, they also embedded about 15 more Greedos than were already there before. And even after Han Solo kills Greedo, he goes walking through the streets and there's the same Greedo all over the place, even though you already killed him. It's also some immigration seeding in that. And Pacific Rim. Oh, and the Neuro Shake in Pacific Rim. That is what it's called when two people have to work together and sync their mind in what's called the neural handshake. So they actually see each other's secrets, and the private is drawn out to the public, and they can actually see each other's history. That's called the neural shake. So that tractor ejaculating on all the people and the other tractor shaking behind them is something of a neural shake, but it's also sex magic. Everything's sex magic. You know why? Do you know why everything is sex magic? Do you know why? Because sex is magic. All right. I'm sure there was more predictive programming than just that, but I just want to make a solid case that the curiosities around why, how, what does it mean? What does it mean? It's hailing to what you already consumed. They already put the fish hooks in us when we consumed this media, these films and this pop culture. And it's just ready for incubation to be launched during the traumatic events. So yeah, predictive programming is so potent. It almost needs a better name. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to move into the ParisSing imbecilic symbolic Olympics. If you haven't noticed already, the word Olympics is an anagram. It's a double anagram. It's got symbolic. Symbolic, if you give a P to a B switch, Olympics becomes symbolic, but it also is imbecilic. And sure enough, that ritual was steeped with lame symbology, the lameites, the lameites. I might not have mentioned it. I might have failed to mention that the artist who made this deck is buried in northeast India. And so my correspondence of the Muses to the Davies was probably some techne that she was quite dialed on. I don't know if I mentioned that already. So the Lameites have one particular stellar tableau that they are quite fond of. LAM in ordinal reduced gematria is 314. This is one of their favorites. And as a stellar tableau, this signifies the lame charioteer, Auriga. Auriga has a deep, vast mythological inheritance, starting with Vulcan, who that's what the Romans called him. Before that, he was Hephaestus. He also corresponds to Erichthonius, who was the lame charioteer, and Auriga, who is also kind of a serpent-legged innovator. He is a blacksmith, but he's cunning. He is the craftsman. Many people know about the significance of the bloodline of Cain, as they were very crafty and they were craftsmen. And the blacksmiths throughout history have been hailing one another and speaking on that inside baseball quite extensively. Also, Sigmund Freud made a very amazing case that the god of some of the Hebrews was, in fact, a volcano god, which is quite fascinating because that means that the god of those particular Hebrews was not a sky daddy. He was not a sky daddy. He was mundane. He's a volcano god. That puts him right down here. Some believe that there was a planet named Vulcan that actually dive-bombed into the sun, and that might have been quite a conflagration if it ever did have any significance. Some people think that Vulcan is the second sun hiding on the other side that we'll never see. That's cool. That's cool too. So the Lameites were very explicitly doing their thing when they were putting together a imbecilic, symbolic Olympic ceremony. And one thing about Erichthonius, I recommend studying all of those names that hail to this Auriga archetype. Such a weak term. It's such a weak term, especially when it's manufactured. It's not natural. The archetype thing makes it sound like a coinkydink that these things link together. No, these are manufactured. These all have quite a long provenance of intentionality that is not just the signs and symbols that just happen to pop up. They are fortified and reinforced and repeated and seeded very tactically. So the word archetype just seems so relative. All right. The Lameites and the imbecilic ceremony is most deeply embedded when it is included with humiliation. Humiliation is the key ingredient. If you know the story of Erichthonius or Hephaestus, he's a lame charioteer, and when he's born with these lizard legs, it's appalling to the pantheon, to such a degree that they even, in some of the paintings, they're flipping over the basket. He's getting tossed out of the basket because people can't even stand to look at him because he's born with a malformity. And in some stories, he is cast out of Olympus by Zeus himself, and he goes through a major fall. In some of the stories, it is the fall that breaks his hip, that gives him a limp, that he can't really quite walk right. And in some other derivatives, he's that breaks his legs, and that's why he's lame. His legs are broken from being cast out of Olympus. You know, I want to step out of the mystic and the mythical. I want to step out of that, and I want to give everybody a research nugget. Y'all should look up what's his name? No. Megara. Theogenes of Megara. Research Theogenes of Megara. If you need it to be mundane, if you need it to be an actual historical persona, study Theogenes of Megara, and also study the athlete Theogenes, who they made a statue of him, and one dude comes up to the statue and he's like, "You ain't all that," and the statue falls on that dude and kills him. But now the statue has blood on it, so the city has to dismantle the statue and throw it away. So study the Theogenes of Megara, but also study the athlete Theogenes who won the Olympics, and they made a statue of him. And when somebody talked shit about it, it fell on them. And then they had to dismantle it and get rid of the medals. And then they made a holiday in observance of that. But that lameness is exactly what people do when they look at the ceremonies. And there's something of a blowback to talking smack on these symbolic egregores. So yeah, Theogenes of Megara is, if you need it to be historical, read his bio, study it thoroughly. He was a big fan of the Symposium, a huge fan, a huge advocate. In fact, I think he thought he was the nubile prophesized one that the Symposium was foretelling the coming of, because he was a big fan of the Symposium as a bedrock touchstone to build all cultures out of. So the Lamites doing their thing, and everybody's repulsed by what they're looking at, but they can't, the morbid curiosity, they can't look away. They don't want to see it, but they can't not see it, and they don't want to talk about it, but they can't not look at it and not talk about it. It's really funny, the magic, because it is writing on in concordance with it is harnessed natural elements in concordance to somebody's will. This Riga, the charioteer, is coterminal to Perseus. And Perseus, in this prime arrangement, Perseus is right over here in the number 8 spot, the controller, as the 19 is the 8th prime number. 19 is the 8th prime number. And number 20 reduces to a 2 is the 1st prime number. So Perseus is over here and Auriga is over here. So there was also a Marie Antoinette holding her own head at the opening ceremony. Very correspondent to Perseus, who cuts off the head of a serpent person. Man, I forget what that's called. Half serpent, half human. Interesting enough, the echidna is the genus, phylum of genetics that is the missing link between reptile and human. The echidna is also he is an echidna. He's totally an echidna. I'm not kidding you. So Perseus, having the head of Medusa in his red sack, is coterminal to Auriga, the echidna, essentially. So one other thing about these Lameites, embedding images that you want to bleach your eyes. You want to bleach your eyes. You want to bleach your eyes, which puts you in a spectator's, in a position of spectator, a passive role. So that is something fascinating about the techne of seeing something that is utterly repulsive to your own personal sensitivities and presuming that somebody else is getting off at your expense. That embeds it even deeper, and it draws out that demonic wrathfulness. And then, sure enough, they float a boat. Oh, no, I'm going to need this again. Yep. Sure enough, they float a boat right across everybody's radar. And sure enough, the boat is looking exactly like a smiley face. Not unlike Matthew Perry in his final post, where he is lame on the couch, passed out in the K-hole, holding a smiley face pillow. There is a sect of very particular choice assholes who presume not only to mock, but to murder, who are getting their jollies off. So, the yellow pillow with the smiley face on Matthew Perry's final post was being flaunted in front of everybody's face during that imbecilic symbolic Olympics. Also, Matthew was the name of the Where's Waldo? J.D. Vance is going around garnering this phrase, weirdo. Weirdo is an amalgamation of the Where's Waldo. And I was thinking about some of my weaves regarding J.D. Vance and the ear-castrated chumpster now. And I mentioned that J.D. Vance is something of an anagram of the John D. Cave, John D. Covenant, really. But if J.D. Vance has got the John D., then that makes Trumpster Edward Kelly. And that is so profound. If anybody's done their homework, you know that Crowley, who commissioned this deck, who was paid to commission this deck, he believed that he was the reincarnation of Edward Kelly. So now, Chumpster is rocking that clipped ear, not really, that Edward Kelly was known to have been punished for forging fraudulent money. What is that? Counterfeiting. He was a counterfeiter, and he was clipped on both ears, actually. That could be significant down the line. It might happen again. But yeah, he had both ears clipped because he didn't learn his lesson the first time. So J.D. Vance got the John D. Now Chumpster's got the Edward Kelly significance. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned that Lady Frida Harris, same name, is Kamala Devi Harris, and Lady Frida Harris is buried in Northeast India. I might be repeating myself, but I just want the reinforcing facts to bring forward a solid structure so that these things do not seem so far removed or so far reaching. I think it is a very solid case that I've made that the John D. and the Edward Kelly of Donald Chumpster they're not Christian, y'all. They're not Christian. Don't get it twisted. I think I'm going to call it on that. That tractor is really something to marvel at. But yeah, everybody go check out my show notes. I got quite a few little proofs to kind of support my words and plead my case. And I think everybody will kind of see that I'm not pulling this out of my hat. That's for sure. So yeah, and also a friendly reminder: give thanks and praise for everybody who's donated so far. Slick Dissident has got the PayPal ready to receive. I got the Cash App ready to receive. I'm gonna be needing it. I got a big move coming in my life, heading back west, and if these donations are sufficient enough, then I will very likely be putting together some merch very soon. Just yesterday on the flow state, I was putting together my slogan, my logo, my Slick Distant Shared Artistic Expression. I've designed my set arcos, who I do want to offer up to anybody who wants to reach out and enrich my life. I would love to have some actual material artifacts to inseminate the world with my own set arcos. I call this fella the Rough Giraffe. That's his name. Yeah, and he's got my little capoeira minions dancing in his mind in the classical Jo Pequeno, Jo Grande berimbau notes hidden within his his mohawk. You know, everybody should maybe make the correspondence on your own. I shouldn't give away all of the significance here, but this is the real Trojan horse, y'all. This is the Trojan horse, because the Trojans rock the mohawk, and there's only one horse that rocks the mohawk. A lot of people think it's the donkey, but the capoeiristas know better. Capoeiristas know better. All right. Big love and respect, everybody. Much strength, much wisdom.